Good morning. It's Wednesday morning, 6:30 a.m., and I can't believe I'm doing a video. But I guess I better get right to it. Here is the corrections for quiz on rational expressions, Form A. So hopefully you're listening very carefully and not just writing down what you see. First thing you want to do, the operation is times. So we want to factor everything that we see. So starting up here in the numerator, we have a difference of two perfect squares. So that's going to factor to x plus 2 and x minus 2. Hopefully I won't make too many mistakes this early in the morning. So x squared breaks down to x times x, and then the 4 breaks down to 2 times 2, and one's positive and one's negative. Difference of two squares. X squared can't be broken down, that's just x times x. Okay, times x can't be broken down, that's just x. And then we have a like variable, we have x times x plus 2x. So we can take 1x from both of them. I can't take more than one because there's only one here. So the maximum x's I can take from both of them is 1. So I'm going to take an x, I'm going to factor out an x. So that leaves me with 1x there and a 2 here. Now you can check to see that you did it right by distributing it back in. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. So we factored it correctly. Alright, multiplying, so everything on top gets multiplied together, everything on the bottom gets multiplied together. So I'm going to just draw this line straight through. I'm going to start canceling. So I'm going to start by canceling out my like groups. So this group and this group. This, and no more groups to cancel, so I'm left with an x minus 2 on top. Okay, now let's deal with the terms. We have an x and an x, so those two can cancel out. Anything divided by itself is 1. So all that we have left on the denominator is x squared. Number 2, starting off here in the numerator, I'm going to go ahead and factor out a 7 out of both of these numbers. 7 goes into both of those evenly. I have 2 x's and 1 x, so I can factor out 1 x from both. Okay, so 7x squared divided by 7x. Well, 7 divided by 7 is 1. X squared divided by x is x. 7 goes into 35 5 times. And if I take an x away from an x, x divided by x is 1. 5 times 1 is just 5. So check to see if you have it right. 7x times x is 7x squared. 7x times negative 5 is negative 35x. Factoring the denominator using our x factor, we do a times c, and the b value goes on the bottom. Thinking about all the factors of 35, 1 times 35, 5 times 7, and the only possible combination that would possibly get us a 2 is 5 and 7 because their difference is 2. So 5 and 7. Okay, I want to add these up and get a negative number. So the negative has to go on the bigger one. 5 times negative 7, 5 plus negative 7. Writing our ratios, a value is 1 over 5, 1 over negative 7. So our first factor is 1x plus 5, 1x minus 7. Alright, I'm going to change division to multiply. And the 14x squared is going to go on the bottom. Can't factor that. I could write 14 times x times x. I could do that. Let's factor this again using the x factor. A times c, 1 times 21, negative 10 on the bottom. So I'm looking for all the factors of 21. So 1 and 21, 3 and 7. So the only combination that could possibly give me a 10, even though it's negative, is 3 and 7. So if I add them, that gives you positive 10. So I want them to be negative. A negative plus a negative is a negative. A negative times a negative is a positive. So our a value goes on top, 1 over negative 3, 1 over negative 10. So x minus 3, x minus 10. Canceling. So I made a mistake. Please forgive me. Hopefully you caught that. 3 and 7 were our factors. I don't know. It's early in the morning. Alright, now canceling. So x minus 7's cancel. And I think that's about it for our groups. Now looking at our terms, 7/14. Well, 7/14 reduces to 1/2. So we're going to have 1 over 2. Here, remember, this is, let's rewrite x squared. This is x times x. So this x cancels out with one of those x's. Alright, so we're left with x minus 5, x minus 3, x plus 5, and we're left with an x. So I'm going to put that right here with the 2. Okay, looking at number 4, first thing to consider here is we're adding. So adding means to get a common denominator. So first thing I did was factor my difference of two squares. So x minus 3, x plus 3. So I'm going to need the x minus 3 in my denominator and the x plus 3. Now, do I need an x minus 3? No, I already have one. Okay, so I have an x minus 3. Does this denominator have something that this one needs? Yes, it has an x plus 3. So the numerator will also need an x plus 3. This denominator didn't need anything, so the numerator stays the same. Now here's where people are getting confused. We're adding, okay? Adding. So we have x plus, and then we distribute the 3. We get that. And now we have to combine like terms. So we have 1x plus 3x is 4x plus 9. And then we put that over our common denominator. And there's no way we can simplify that any further. And the food for today is apple. Apple, apple, apple. Number 5, we're subtracting. So we need to get a common denominator when adding and subtracting. So this is going to factor to, using the x factor on this below, we're going to have x minus 6 and x plus 5. So that's what that factors to. So getting a common denominator, I need an x minus 6. Just copy that down, bring that down. And then does this denominator have anything that this one needs? No, we already have an x plus 5. So the numerator stays the same. Okay, so this one has an x plus 5. Does this denominator have something that this one needs? Sure, it needs an x minus 6, doesn't it? So we're going to multiply the top by x minus 6. Now, all we do now is we simplify the numerator. So we get x minus, okay, now 1 times anything is itself. So I'm going to distribute the minus onto both of these terms. So this is going to be minus x and minus negative 6. So minus x minus negative 6, which is plus 6. A lot of people miss that. We're subtracting both of these terms. So we end up with 6 on top because x minus x is 0 over our common denominator. And the order does not matter on the denominator. All right, number 7. Here we have to factor by grouping. So we have 3 x's and 2 x's. So I can take 2 x's out of both. That leaves me with an x and a 2. Here I can take a 3 out of both terms. So 3 goes into 3 1 time, so I have 1x. 3 goes into 6 2 times. So this ends up being x squared plus 3. That's these two. And then an x plus 2. Okay, this one factors down to, I'm going to take a 2 out of both terms. I get x squared plus 3. And that, I cannot factor that any further. Alright, common denominator. I need to, first of all, write this down. X squared plus 3. X plus 2. Now let's look. Does this denominator have anything that this one needs? Sure, it needs a 2. So 2 is going to be what I multiply the 1 by on top. Because if the denominator needs it, the numerator needs it too. Plus, okay, this denominator has a 2. It has an x squared plus 3. What does it need? It needs an x plus 2. The denominator needs an x plus 2. The numerator needs an x plus 2. And apple sounds really good about right now. So once we get a common denominator, we're going to add the numerators together. So 1 times 2 is 2. Distribute. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 2 is 4x. Okay, so what I have here is I'm going to rearrange these so they're in the correct order. I'm going to put the 2x squared first, then the 4x, and then the 2. Now you should be able to recognize that you could factor out a 2 out of the top. So factoring out a 2, 2 goes into 2 1 time. Over our common denominator. Okay, and then the 2's cancel. Now, we could try and factor this, which would be x plus 1 and x plus 1, but it would not cancel anything down here. So, we're going to go ahead and stop right there. So, apple is the fruit for Form A.